Iranian espionage is escalating in Europe. Germany is rewriting its constitution for war. BRICS just added another major economy, and Brazil isn't flinching under U.S. pressure. I am Mandatory Fun Day. This is Worldwide Wednesday. Here's everything you need to know in a couple minutes. Stick around to the end because we're going to break down how BRICS is shaping a new global tech alliance. And at least stick around until the end because I'm going to read my favorite comments from previous videos. The United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Germany, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and the Netherlands issued a joint warning this week accusing Iran of carrying out escalating intelligence operations across Europe and North America. The statement alleges Iranian operatives have been targeting dissidents, Jewish communities, journalists, and former government officials through plots involving kidnapping, harassment, and even potential assassination. Some schemes reportedly relied on criminal proxies to carry out the dirty work. This marks a rare public convergence of Western allies explicitly calling out Iran for espionage and subversive tactics. Why can't I say subversive? And subversive acts beyond the Middle East. As Tehran continues projecting power globally through shadow networks, this may lead to tighter transatlantic intelligence coordination, but also to diplomatic retaliation, sanctions, and potential expulsions of Iranian diplomats. It also further isolates Iran from any prospect of thawing relations with NATO-aligned powers. Germany has delivered 2 Patriot air defense systems to Ukraine this week as part of a broader realignment of European military support for Kyiv. In tandem, Berlin formally amended its constitution to allow expanded long-term defense borrowing, paving the way for up to $1 trillion in future military investment. This comes as German leadership pushes for deeper cooperation on joint weapons procurement and industrial capacity across NATO and EU allies. Germany is undergoing a generational defense transformation. By rewriting its constitutional constraints and delivering high-value systems to Ukraine, Berlin is signaling its commitment to strategic leadership in Europe. It also likely marks a break from the more cautious foreign policy approach of past decades. Expect Germany to play a growing role in shaping Europe's defense posture both on NATO's Eastern Front and in industrial logistics. At a recent NATO summit, Portugal announced a plan to meet the alliance's new defense spending target of 5% of GDP by 2035. The government emphasized it will approach this increase gradually and sustainably to protect fiscal balance. Under the new framework, 3.5% is to go toward core military capability, while 1.5% can cover related efforts such as Ukraine support and civil defense. Portugal's announcement puts it in alignment with NATO's new military readiness doctrine, which emphasizes not just spending but forward deployed capability. While critics fear the 5% goal is unrealistic for smaller economies, Portugal's commitment could inspire similar pledges from other Mediterranean states like Greece and Italy. Still, balancing high defense spending with domestic economic pressures will be a major challenge. In response to the NATO summit decision, Slovakia, Spain, and Belgium have publicly expressed concerns about meeting the 5% of GDP defense spending target. Officials from these nations cited fiscal constraints, limited defense industries, and domestic political opposition. Slovakia in particular emphasized its economy could not realistically sustain such a defense burden without risking public backlash. This pushback reveals deep fractures in NATO's internal consensus on readiness. While eastern frontline states like Poland and the Baltics are pushing hard for higher investments, others further west are wary of triggering political or economic instability. NATO unity is solid in rhetoric, but fiscal realities may splinter implementation unless exceptions or staggered timelines are offered. The video is not over, but if you would like to support me further, head over to themandatoryfunday.com. That's my website. On the website, you can buy merch. We've also got a link for regulation compliant shirts, and if you want to become a member, you get 20% off that merchandise and access to exclusive content. Let's get back to the video. A Brazilian presidential advisor announced that Brazil will not bow to U.S. pressure regarding its BRICS membership. This comes after Washington floated punitive trade measures targeting key Brazilian exports. They dismissed the threats, calling them counterproductive, and reaffirmed Brazil's intent to build deeper ties across the global South and Asia through the BRICS platform. Brazil's confidence in rejecting U.S. leverage reflects a broader shift in the country's foreign policy under their president, away from Western dependence and toward multipolar partnerships. If the U.S. follows through with tariffs, it could fuel anti-American sentiment and push Brazil further into China's and Russia's economic orbit. BRICS may benefit in the short term, but Brazil's balancing act will grow more precarious with global markets watching. The 17th BRICS Summit took place in Rio de Janeiro on July 6 and 7 in Brazil. Leaders and high-level reps from Brazil, China, India, Russia, South Africa, and new members like Indonesia signed the Rio Declaration, which emphasized development, financial cooperation, and a new push for global AI governance standards. Notably, both Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping skipped the event physically, attending virtually. Despite major leaders skipping the in-person event, BRICS signaled institutional stability and a continued appetite for rulemaking in new tech domains. The Rio Declaration's focus on AI governance positions BRICS as a counterweight to Western-led standards. This could foreshadow a split digital future, one where BRICS members build build their own AI frameworks outside the control of Washington, Brussels, or Silicon Valley. India will assume the rotating BRICS chairmanship in 2026 and host the next summit. This took place with India outlining plans to focus on cross-border tech transfer, space collaboration, and currency diversification. They emphasized it will work to streamline bloc decision-making and help newer members integrate. India taking the reins of BRICS could reshape the bloc's tone. Unlike China or Russia, India remains loosely aligned with Western democracies, particularly via the Quad. Its leadership may seek to balance BRICS priorities while avoiding overt anti-NATO stances. Expect 2026 to test whether BRICS can remain a coherent bloc or if India ends up acting as a moderating force within an increasingly fractured alliance. Indonesia officially became a full BRICS member at the start of 2025 and made its summit debut in Rio. With the world's fourth largest population and fast-growing economy, they bring major regional heft to the group. Indonesia will also chair BRICS in 2027, signaling its growing leadership role in the global south. Indonesia's entry cements BRICS' geographic expansion into Southeast Asia, increases its claim to be a true global counterbalance to Western institutions. However, internal alignment remains a challenge. Indonesia's traditional non-alignment could complicate bloc unity on foreign policy issues, especially if tension rises between China and India or if BRICS becomes more overtly anti-West. Of all the events we talked about this week, the BRICS move to establish its own AI governance standards might be the one that's going to shape the next few decades the most, even more than immediate military budgets or political maneuvering. Here's why. Technology doesn't just support power, it defines it. Whoever sets the rules for AI sets the rules for the future economy, the future of warfare, and even the future of how societies operate day to day. And this week in Rio, BRICS made it clear they're not going to let Silicon Valley, Brussels, or Washington decide the terms for them. The Rio Declaration included an explicit call for AI governance to be led by the United Nations, not Western-led consortia, not the G7, and definitely not private US tech giants. That sounds like a polite diplomatic line, but underneath it's a strategic challenge. BRICS members know the UN process will be slower, more politicized, and more open to influence from emerging economies, exactly the environment where they can dilute or counter Western tech rules. Now let's connect this to real-world leverage. AI is already integrated into military targeting systems, economic modeling, propaganda campaigns, and surveillance infrastructure. China is pouring resources into AI-powered military planning and civilian control systems. Russia is adapting AI for drone warfare and cyber operations. India wants AI for healthcare and agriculture, but is very aware of the military applications. Brazil and South Africa see AI as a development accelerator, but also as a way to cut dependence on Western software ecosystems. If BRICS can agree on a shared AI framework and convince enough of the global South to adopt it, they could create an alternative AI internet, a set of standards, data sharing agreements, and regulatory norms that Western companies either have to adapt to or abandon. That would effectively split the digital world into two competing systems, much like the Cold War split global trade and military alliances. And here's where it gets even bigger. Even bigger. AI governance isn't just about the tech. It's about who gets to control the flow of information, how automated decision-making is handled in warfare, and which values are embedded into the algorithms running our economy. If BRICS writes those rules for half the world, NATO countries will have to decide whether to compromise, compete, or isolate. This is the kind of shift you don't feel right away. Like the shift of when you drink coffee. You feel the shift, the down-under shift. You know what I'm talking about. But 5-10 years down the line, it could be the difference between a world where the internet, commerce, and defense AI systems operate under one global standard, or a fractured competing system where your AI tools literally speak a different language depending on which block you're in. So while defense budgets and troop movements make headlines, the quiet agreement signed in Rio could be the first move in a much bigger strategic game. One that determines not just who wins the next conflict, but who writes the operating code for the 21st century. That was this week's Worldwide Wednesday. Iran's spies are getting bold, Germany's rewriting its defense playbook, and BRICS is building out its own digital world. Which of these stories do you think is getting overlooked? Which do you think is the most important? Drop your take in the comments, please. Here we go with the comments. Elizabeth Moore 9220 said, clean-shaven Jason Momoa looks kind of like mandatory fun day, LOL. Jason Momoa is a good-looking man, and I'm gonna live on this compliment for the rest of my life. My favorite news channel on YouTube. That was the Lil Rotini with two eyes at the end. Lil Rotini, thank you, and the bar is incredibly low if I'm your favorite. No, but for real, thank you. Full of a toucan, LMAO. Your whole shirt line is awesome. No, you're awesome. Thank you. I mean, I like the shirt designs. Thank you. Uriel Gray said, Studio Freedom Eagle Screech out of 10. I'm assuming the Freedom Eagle Screech on a scale of 1 to 10 is very high up there. It's got probably a 10, I think. Chill XXX241 The U.S. doesn't want mutual defense treaties with every country on the planet. I'm not sure why we maintain a mutual defense treaty with the Philippines since we have no permanent bases. Yeah, you're talking about like broad, very complex geopolitical topics. You could probably do an entire separate video on exactly what you're talking about. I appreciate the comment, and I hope that, it created some good dialogue underneath. Lil Delta 78 said the new studio looks good, plus these new segments are great. Well, thank you, Lil Delta. Oh wait, no, Liv Delta. Sorry, Lil Delta. Maybe that'll be my rap name. John Nictor 5087 said, I'm sorry, but did people forget what happened the last 2 times Europe militarized? I don't think we forgot. I think that joke has been made quite a few times, Mr. John. But it's a good point to bring up. Looking at you, Germany. BRICS was doomed to fail from the start, and that's exactly where it's headed. Great content. That was Phil13895. BRICS failing? I don't know. I don't know if that's going to happen. There's a lot of really, really significant players in BRICS now. I don't know. We'll see where they go. I'm going to keep covering it. George Washington laser musket. Anyone funding the Russian war should be at minimum tariffed 100%. We should also tariff all BRICS members a base 25% in principle as should the EU. Goodness gracious. 100%. I don't know. Honest to God, I don't know enough about tariffs and their long-term impacts, the second and third order effects of them to really comment strongly one way or the other on them. I took one economics class in college, and I realized I should probably just not discuss economics. It's a vastly complex subject, for sure. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out themandatoryfunday.com for the gear that gets flagged by the algorithm, but not by the regs. The gear doesn't get flagged by the algorithm. I thought that joke was funny. It's not that funny. Sorry. I love you. Watch the next video in the queue. Watch another video, please. I'll give you a hug if you tell me you watched it. And you see me in person, I'll hug you. I'll hug you so good. It is the best hug you'll ever get in your life. Are you still watching? Why? Just move on to the next video. Stop making eye contact with me.